In her hand was a scrap of paper, torn from the edge of her prayer journal. On it, in her familiar handwriting, were just 5 words: "He is coming for us, Dr." Hartwell was summoned yet again, though by now even he seemed to approach each visit not with hope of answers, but with the grim resignation of someone simply bearing witness. His notes from this final visit were brief and troubled. He wrote, "This is not illness. This is not hysteria. It is as though their souls are being drawn away one by something I cannot name. I fear I am too late." By the morning of January 24th, 4 more nuns had died, all in their beds, all with that same peaceful, almost blissful expression, each one with rosary in hand, eyes closed as if in prayer. Sister Mary Agnes was among the last still keeping record. Her final entry, written with shaky hand and smudged ink, reads, "We are being called one by one. The chapel feels brighter than it should in the candlelight. The air is thick with something we cannot see, but we feel it deep in our bones. Some say it is God, others do not name it. I pray, not for understanding, but for strength. I do not know if I will be here tomorrow." That was the last anyone ever wrote from within Sacred Heart Convent during those fateful days. When the thaw finally came in early March, Father O'Brien returned to the convent with 2 parishioners from Lancaster. What they found inside stunned them into silence. 12 women had died in perfect peace, spaced over just 48 hours. The remaining 5 were alive, but forever changed. They were weak, barely speaking, and looked through people rather than at them. Each one claimed to have no memory of the previous month, no memory of the deaths, the cold, or the strange atmosphere that had gripped the convent. The church took control of the convent's records soon after. The remaining sisters were transferred to other facilities, and Sacred Heart was quietly shuttered by the end of the year. The building still stands today, abandoned, silent, and slowly being reclaimed by nature. The case was never reopened. No further investigation was made, but the letters, journals, and testimonies that survived paint a portrait of something far beyond the reach of medicine, reason, or even faith. 12 lives lost with no violence, no disease, and no answers, only the unsettling sense that something had reached into that isolated place in the dead of winter and taken exactly what it came for. And whatever it was, the church never wanted it spoken of again. Standing around me, smiling, waiting, I am the last. The circle will soon be whole, and when it is, we will cross together. That was the final entry. Dr. Hartwell's attempts to save Sister Mary Agnes failed. By the next morning, she too had passed peacefully, like the others. Her body was found in the chapel, sitting upright in the front pew, her rosary in one hand and, in the other, a slip of paper with a single word, "Fulfilled." The final cross in the basement had fallen. When investigators later arrived in response to Dr. Hartwell's desperate letters, they found no signs of violence, no evidence of foul play, no cause of death. The convent was sealed, the records quietly removed, and the story buried. Only fragments remained: Agnes's journal, Dr. Hartwell's notes, and the coded letters that revealed the truth. The Sacred Heart Convent tragedy was never acknowledged publicly by the Church. What truly happened was deemed too dangerous to be known, too disturbing to be shared. But behind the silence, one terrifying fact remained. The events at Sacred Heart were not a one-time occurrence. They were part of something larger, something still unfinished. And somewhere out there, the shepherd was watching, waiting, ready to begin again. Chat said, as clearly as if they were still alive, maybe even more so. I can see them. They stand in a circle around me, their faces glowing with a soft inner light, their voices blending into a harmony so beautiful it fills me with longing. They tell me the door between worlds is almost open. Only one more soul is needed to complete the bridge they've built with their deaths. Dr. Hartwell, having finally decoded all of the correspondence, came to a chilling realization. The so-called shepherd wasn't a holy figure at all. He was Marcus Aldrich, a former seminary student expelled for his radical beliefs about death and resurrection. Aldrich had become obsessed with the idea that death wasn't an end, but a transformation, and that, under the right conditions, prepared souls could cross back over to help others do the same. In his journal, Dr. Hartwell documented what he called the horrific truth. Aldrich had been conducting psychological experiments on isolated religious groups. using their devotion against them in what he referred to as spiritual engineering. He didn't just convince people to die, he made them want to die. He used a careful mix of religious symbolism, isolation, and repetition to make believers see death as not just acceptable, but desirable. The letters revealed that Aldrich had given Mother Superior Brennan exact instructions. He coached her on how to slowly introduce the idea of the chosen, how to use specific prayers and meditations to deepen belief, and how to interpret everyday occurrences as signs of divine approval. Most disturbingly, he showed her how to use the sisters' love for one another to nudge them further. Each death was framed not as a loss, but a gift, something beautiful to be admired and followed. Their peaceful expressions became proof that they'd found something greater. That made the others want to go, too. Dr. Hartwell wrote, "These women believed they were following God's will. In truth, they were obeying the delusions of a man who saw their faith as a tool to manipulate, not something to respect." With the full picture in view, the doctor rushed to the chapel to save Sister Mary Agnes, but when he got there, he found her kneeling at the altar, arms outstretched as if embracing something unseen. "Doctor," she said without turning, "they've shown me a place where pain ends and joy begins, where everything heavy just falls away. How can I say no to that?" Dr. Hartwell pleaded with her. He explained everything, read her the letters, laid out the manipulation, the psychological conditioning, the lies. He told her what he had uncovered, that none of it was divine. But Sister Mary Agnes just smiled, her face calm. "You only see the surface," she said. "You call it death. I see transformation. You call it loss. I feel joy. My sisters aren't gone, they're more alive than ever. And soon, I will be too." In a final attempt, Dr. Hartwell tried to physically pull her away, but just as he reached out, she whispered one word, "Now." Her body collapsed into his arms. No pain, no struggle, just peace. Her lips curled into a soft smile, just like the others. There was no cause of death, no sign of illness. She had simply stopped living, answering a call only she could hear, a call carefully planted in her mind. Dr. Hartwell, now completely alone, stayed in the convent for 3 days. He cared for the bodies of 14 women who hadn't died from sickness or violence, but from belief shaped and twisted by a man who understood exactly how to use it. When the weather finally allowed him to leave, he returned to Millbrook forever changed. In his official report to the county, he blamed the deaths on a rare and fast-spreading contagion, supposedly contained by the convent's isolation. The church sealed the building. The sisters were buried together behind Sacred Heart in a shared grave. But in his private journals discovered only after his death in 1867, Dr. Hartwell wrote a very different story. He didn't stop at Sacred Heart. He kept investigating. What he found was deeply unsettling. The same pattern of tragedy kept appearing across the country. A convent in Virginia, 8 nuns died in their sleep, all with peaceful expressions and handwritten notes reading "Called Home." A Pennsylvania monastery, 12 monks found dead in their chapel after a supposed divine visitation, with one survivor who claimed they had been chosen. A Baptist mission in Tennessee, the entire congregation, 23 people dead during a prayer meeting, their faces glowing with that same eerie peace. Each case had been written off by local authorities: disease, accident, God's will. But behind all of them was one common thread: correspondence with Marcus Aldrich. Aldrich had published his earliest ideas in obscure theological journals under fake names. In these writings, he described how to lead a religious group toward what he called collective transcendence. He believed communities of true faith could be guided beyond life itself, and he saw their deaths not as failures, but as proof of his method's success. Dr. Hartwell wrote, "Aldrich saw himself as a prophet. He believed he was helping people achieve their highest potential even as he destroyed them. And Aldrich wasn't alone. Hartwell found evidence of a network, a group of followers helping him target vulnerable communities. Some were former clergy, some were just people who shared his views. They would embed themselves into these groups long before Aldrich made direct contact, planting ideas and preparing members for what was to come. Most disturbing of all, Sacred Heart wasn't the end. It was just one phase of a much bigger plan. Hartwell found notes showing that Aldrich was refining his approach, looking to apply it on a larger scale. He wanted to move beyond isolated groups and reach Hundreds, maybe thousands. He saw every death as a data point in a grand experiment, each one bringing him closer to what he believed was spiritual truth. Aldrich remained elusive. The closest Hartwell came to catching him was in the summer of 1835. He tracked him to a town in western Pennsylvania, but Aldrich had vanished just 3 days before. In the rented room he'd left behind, there was only a single note. The work continues. Some believed Aldrich fled once he realized he was being hunted. Others thought he joined one of the groups he had influenced, dying as part of his own twisted legacy. But Hartwell believed something else, that Aldrich had simply moved on, taking his experiment to new communities even further from oversight. In Hartwell's final journal entry, he wrote, "The greatest danger wasn't he that one man convinced so many people to die. It is that his methods worked so well, and could so easily be copied by anyone with the right knowledge. The Sacred Heart Convent was left abandoned for nearly 40 years. It was demolished in 1873, and the land sold to a local farming family. They reported nothing unusual except that their animals refused to go near the area where the convent had stood. The livestock would walk up to about 50 yards from the site, then stop and turn around, as if sensing something invisible. A desolate, snow-covered cemetery at night, the moonlight casting long shadows over rows where wooden crosses once stood, but are now missing or rotting, faint ghostly lights hovering in the distance, a chilling, melancholic atmosphere with frost-covered grass and bare winter trees." Dr. Margaret Chen, an expert in cult psychology, once said, "What makes Sacred Heart so disturbing is how precise it was. Aldrich didn't fight their faith, he used it. He made it the very thing that destroyed them. So what do you think? Was this tragedy the result of pure manipulation? Or did the sisters actually find something on the other side that called to them? Could something like this happen again today? Or have we learned enough to stop it?" Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And if this story intrigued you, hit the like button, subscribe, and send it to someone who enjoys unraveling dark mysteries. There are more stories like this buried in forgotten records, whispered in local legends. If you're ready, we'll uncover them together, one haunting truth at a time.